So admittedly, I did clickbait you a little bit with the thumbnail because fairies are not real in The Sims 4 yet. This is actually the fairies versus witches mod, which is a great mod, by the way. The fairies are honestly so in-depth. They genuinely look real. They even have a plumb bob. They have different kind of fairy spells. There is actually a lot that comes with this mod, but we are getting fairies officially in The Sims 4. How do we know? They've given us many sneak peeks, many hints across the way. This one is an obvious one. It's a fairy riding a unicorn. We also got a tooth fairy sticker, another tooth fairy sticker, another tooth fairy sticker. We also got this toadstool planter box here, which is pretty obvious as well. The Sims team also gave a lot of hints on TikTok. Honestly, the Sims social media handler on TikTok is always revealing secrets. They've already basically given away that we were getting horses months before horses were announced. They've given away fairies and they've given away cars. So we basically know they're coming and they're more than likely going to be put in a game pack. So I want to talk about what is actually going to be coming in the Sims 4 Fairies pack. Obviously, there's different modes, cast, build, gameplay, and a world. Looking at cast first, obviously it's going to come with all the aesthetic sparkly things, wings, unnatural fairy skin tones maybe. But in terms of specific things, okay, I would like to see a talent selection or elemental selection thing. In order to make every single fairy unique, I think they need to have different talents or elementals, just like different werewolves have different kind of dormant abilities or different kind of powers depending on their like personality type. I think fairies should be the same in real life. I say in real life. In most fairy lore, like there's different kinds of fairies. If you look at like Wink Saga, there's different elemental fairies. If you look at the Tinkerbell series, they have different talent powers. I feel like every single fairy, in order to make them unique, should have their own special talent thing. You could have, you know, a water fairy, a fire fairy, a wind fairy, whatever kind of fairy it is. My accent makes it sound like I'm saying furries, but I am saying fairies. It's just my accent, by the way. Having that you could set in cast, I think it would be a very great move for EA to do in order to make the fairies pack a lot more in depth. I think if every single fairy had the exact same ability, it would be a little bit boring. Being able to make them all have, you know, the same obviously basic abilities for all, but having specialist talents depending on what type of fairy that they are, I think it would be a great idea. Another thing to set in cast is aspirations. I really don't want like the vampires aspiration where you have like a vampire enthusiast. I don't want a fairy enthusiast. Like I want proper aspirations that are made for fairies that are not tutorial aspirations. An aspiration to master all the fairy talents, an aspiration to be a proper mischievous bad fairy, aspiration to be a good fairy. I want them to tie into gameplay and be fun. In terms of build mode, again, this is very ambitious, but I think EA should make fairy houses. In The Sims 3, it came with like a miniature fairy house, which was a rabbit hole that your fairies could shrink down and fly into. And they could, for example, have parties in there or woohoo in there. It was a cool idea, but in The Sims 4, seeming that it's going to be its whole game pack, or God forbid, an expansion pack, I think they should expand on that by actually making it so you can go into a fairy house, like isn't load into it. I think that would be a must, and being able to actually build in there. I think it would make build mode a lot of fun for people who are into fairies. I also think they need to add like a toadstool roof because we have curved walls now. So if we had like a proper toadstool roof, you could make like a proper toadstool fairy house. And I'd really love to see some build items that look like kind of miniature things that fairies use, because obviously fairies in folklore are very small. And you know, like I remember when I was a kid, like we used to put out like little dollhouse items out in the woods, and we used to build fairy houses and put like little miniature items in there for them to use. And I think that would be really cool for build mode to have like sized up miniature dollhouse style items. I think there's a lot that they could do with build mode. In terms of the world, now I know EA have a fetish for American suburban mining towns, but fairies cannot exist in a world like that. God forbid we're getting another fucking mining town. We're gonna have a mental breakdown if we do. Obviously fairies come from European folklore, especially Celtic folklore. Celtic is basically Wales. If you don't know, it comes from the country of Wales, which is a part of the United Kingdom. I put some B-roll on the screen to show you Wales if you're interested. Although we do already have a British world known as the cottage living world, Hempford upon Shagley. Honestly, they should have just put fairies in that pack because it honestly like would have worked so well. I'm really surprised that they didn't. Honestly, so surprised. Obviously, we already already have a British world in The Sims 4. Well, we have 2 British worlds in The Sims 4, so they couldn't do another one that's similar to cottage living. Seeing that fairies are European folklore, I think they should do another European world. We have Tartosa, which is like Mediterranean, and we have the Get Together world, which is basically Germany. So I think there's a lot of other different avenues that they could go down with Europe, and I think it would be the best thing to do. A world with like, you know, magical fairy meadows and waterfalls and things. Or if they didn't want to do that, this is very ambitious, and I don't know if EA is going to be this ambitious, but obviously fairies can like shrink down to a small size. I genuinely think it would be really, really cool if the fairies had their own special world that was like shrunk down. So, you know, like little flowers would look like the size of trees, and they built up this kind of world like that. And maybe only fairies can enter it, or non-fairy sims could enter if they took a shrinking potion or something. I think it would be a really cool idea. And I know that they wouldn't be able to make like lots inside of trees or boot house lots or makeshift little homes because of the way the Sims 4 lot system works, but I think it should have, you know, a lot of the fake set dressing that the Sims team love to do with Sims 4 worlds. Lots of pretty magical looking houses like that. I think it would be really cute and cool. But in terms of the most important thing, gameplay, obviously fairies need to have a skill tree system, just like the other main occults do. I do like how, for example, werewolves, they have not only just a skill tree where they learn different powers based on EXP points, but they also have a hierarchy system with the wolves. I mean, even the vampires have it and the spellcasters have it too. Fairies have got to have it. I feel like, you know, you start from a little pixie going up to a king or queen fairy in terms of rankings. I think it would be a good idea. Obviously, they should have a skill tree system, as I said, although I think that they should have locked ones depending on what kind of talent your fairy has, what their natural gift is or what their element is, and go down different elemental paths. I just feel like that's the best way they got to go about learning new fairy powers. Obviously, they would have basic skills for all fairies. In The Sims 3, fairies had a lot of pranking magic where they could do mischievous things, which I think would be cool. Obviously, fairies have got to have gardening magic where they could do lots of gardening. Maybe they could have pixie dust to make other Sims or even objects fly. They could have fairy auras, which affect Sims around them. There's a lot. Another thing is lore. With the Sims 4 Werewolves pack, I actually appreciated that they added a lot of lore with the pack. I do miss lore from The Sims 2 and The Sims 3, and I think it would be great to add it again in The Sims 4 Fairies pack. Seeing how they tie in with crossover features with other occults, I think it would be a really fun gameplay aspect. Another one is toadstools. I feel like it should be added to gardening as like a brand new gardening mechanic, being able to grow different toadstools. The Sims 4 is way too PC and family friendly to ever include magic mushrooms. Maybe they could just have like different toadstools that you could use for crafting, I don't know, fairy pixie dust recipes or something. I don't know. I think they could implement it in some way to give the pack a little bit more depth. I mean, deep down, fairies should have just been part of a big supernatural pack like they did in The Sims 3, but that's not happening. And with the upcoming Sims 4 Horse Ranch pack, we know that EA is not afraid to give us a tiny little bit of gameplay in an expansion pack, let alone a game pack. So I don't have the highest hope for fairies. EA have let us down, I believe, with Horse Ranch for being very limited. So we're going to have to wait and see what's in it. Guys, what do you think that should be in it? Think of things that most people wouldn't ordinarily think of. I'm curious about what you think. Anyway, thank you for watching this little speculation video. If you enjoyed it, make sure that you subscribe. Other than that, I will see you in the next one.